So recording is in progress. So very good evening, everyone. I hope you are enjoying those two red wines. And this is our last tasting of the Spanish box. So we have been through 4 wines so far, and those are the last 2 wines. And we had 2 whites, a rosé, if I'm not mistaken, a white and a rosé, and then we had, no, hold on, it was 2 whites and then a rosé and a red wine, and now we have 2 red wines. So we have seen all the most traditional style of wine so far, in my point of view, perhaps not the most popular ones. And that's the key thing when you are facing a WSET diploma examination, because not necessarily you are going to have the most common style of wine, but perhaps you may have a traditional but not common, okay? And it's important for you to think of it and consider all your options. So you know that you are in Spain and you have 2 red wines. Start thinking, what could it be? What are the major grape varieties or the most popular grape varieties of Spain? And then where are they planted? What are the influences? What's the winemaking process? What do they taste like? So that needs to go through your mind as you're tasting those 2 wines. And then you go on and say, oh, it could not be this, it could not be that, it could not, you know, until you funnel. You need to go through this funneling process. What could it be? What could not be? Does anybody, would you like to share your comments, your thoughts on the first wine, wine number 5, and the second wine, which is wine number 6? And then what we need to find is where those 2 wines coming from. What's the region? What's the grape variety? What's the climatic condition of those 2 wines and why? Therefore, where could they be coming from? Right? Does anybody, would you like to share your comments on wine number 5? Mm-hmm. No pressure. As you are tasting both wines, compare them, like what's the major difference between the first and the second? There are key differences between them.
I think the first is more sweeter, more softer, more concentrated, acidity more soft too, and the six wine, herbal, spice, red fruit, and this 5 more chocolate, more black pepper, more the 6 wine. I think the climate more cooling influence.
Mhm.
6 more mineral than 5.
Okay, so if you think that the first wine it's coming from a more warmer climate, where could it be in Spain? Where do you think you are?
The five wine. I think the warmer climate than 6.
Mhm. And where are the warmer climates in Spain?
Um, the the central and the central, the La Mancha, the Humila,
Mhm.
the central thought Spanish. Then the cooling influence is north. The, I think the Rio Alavesa, the Mencia, the Metindeiro, so this region influence, cooling influence, ocean influence.
Okay. All right, guys. Does anybody would you like to share your thoughts of the first wine, the whole full tasting note?
I can try to say, even though I did it about 15 minutes after I opened the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tried to redo it, let's say half an hour, 40 minutes later, it seemed to be a little different wine. But I'm gonna go through what I found. If you guys don't agree, please comment. I think it's medium ruby in the appearance, medium intensity on the nose. I thought it has it's a young wine, so it's got primary characteristics, mainly ripe red and black berries. At first, I thought the presence of oak was stronger than the presence of the fruit, and even masking the presence of fruit. And I also did smell some bread, which I don't feel right now. In the palate, it's not dry. I agree with Ellen. I think it's off dry. Medium body, medium plus acidity, medium plus alcohol. The intensity is higher in the mouth. It's a medium plus. The fruit is more present in the mouth than in the nose. It's a medium finish. The tannins, it's a medium plus tannins, rustic tannins. I think it's a higher volume wine. It lacks concentration. It's a simple wine, and it's a good wine. Okay.
All right. So, have you got from your tasting notes? Can you point a grape variety?
No.
Okay. How about region? What are the key indicators in your tasting note, the climate condition?
Well, if I think it's a high volume wine, it doesn't come from, let's say,
Uh-huh.
I don't know Spain very well, so I'm not going to comment on regions. But it doesn't seem to come from a cool influence region because, acidity, well, it's acidity medium plus, alcohol medium plus, the tannins in good quantity. So I don't know. I have no clue to which variety. You asked us to think about variety, the red wine varieties in Spain, Tempranillo, Mencia, Monastrell, Garnacha,
Yeah.
Canineña.
Yeah. Which one?
I don't know.
You see, the first thing when you taste the wine, does it taste like a Spanish wine? It does. It has a very good generosity. It does has this sort of punch of fruit in mid palate. The acidity is never too high or too low. It's within a refreshing zone of acidity. It doesn't taste like Cabernet Sauvignon. It doesn't taste like a Merlot. So it tastes like a truly Spanish wine. Remember, I think we tasted a sort of I think it was Cabernet Sauvignon from I think it was a Torres one, yeah, the last red wine that we had, if I'm not mistaken.
No, they
And it
were
had a bit of
they were
Cabernet,
Garnacha.
Garnacha.
Garnacha Selvaje, del proyecto Garnacha.
But okay, I think there was another red wine. Okay, well, nevertheless, no, we tasted a Torres one, but it was a white wine. Yeah, it was a white with based on the aromatic give us a blend with I think it was can't remember right now, but yeah, okay. So I think it does taste this red wine, it does taste like a truly Spanish wine. I think that's the first thing. As I taste this wine, I have a few pointers to the climatic condition here. The first thing for me, it is a medium ruby wine, so it's not deep at all, okay, but not pale, so deep ruby. And as I smell the wine, I smell like a black fruit as opposed to red fruit. So I smell like a plum, cherries, blackberries, stuff. It has a hint of herbal notes to it, to the aromas. And then all of these, how can I say, toast and smoky from the use of oak, it becomes very clear. And for me, it's more of French oak as opposed to American oak. So I don't get this coconut, this sweet coconut and stuff. So if I was to think of a region, I would straight away go and say, oh, this is definitely not Rioja. This is definitely not a zone that is using this American oak, okay? However, there are French oak being used in Rioja. It's common French oak to be used. However, when I think of Rioja, I think the acidity is usually higher than this, more penetrating, more clear. Not here. I also think that the tannins are more present, although quite velvety, but more present than here. I don't get this. And Rioja, I'm expecting more of a red fruit as opposed to black fruit. So if I think it's Tempranillo, I should be aiming to Ribera del Duero, because Ribera has this sort of a more black fruit as opposed to red. So I'm still thinking, where could it be? Where is it coming from? But it's definitely black fruit as opposed to red fruit. So it's coming from a more warmer zone here. Then as I taste the wine, I think it's dry. I think it's medium plus body. It has moderated alcohol, so medium alcohol, like a 13.5. It's below 14% alcohol. That's how I perceive the wine. The acidity for me is medium plus. However, it's vivid, it's vibrant, it's crunchy, but it's medium plus. The tannins, yes, I would say initially I thought the tannins were medium plus, but very soft, very ripe. It's not grainy at all, so it's velvety. It's soft, okay? So the concentration on a mid palate is medium and the finish is also medium, but it finishes in a very uncomplex way, uncomplicated, quite simple, quite fruit driven, and a hint of smoke on the palate. A bit ashy, to be honest, to be quite fair, ashy. So what leads me to a more warmer region, you know, moderated to warm, is the punch of a fruit. I think it's dry rather than off dry. I think it's dry, but it has a very good concentration of fruit, medium, as I said. This velvety texture of the tannins is leading me to a more warmer region, moderated to warm region. You know, think of a new world. Think of wines coming from warm climate, Chile and Argentina. They often has, even Australian, they often has this very velvety tannins, which is what we get here. Okay, so that's why that leads me to a more moderated climate. But I don't get all of this, how can I say, complexity on a finished palate. When I taste the wine and I spit, it's not that complex. So if I was in Ribera del Duero, I was expecting a lot more concentration to be a crianza style, right? It doesn't taste like a crianza. It doesn't have all this concentration and structure for crianza for Ribera del Duero. Right? Are you with me? So it's definitely not Ribera. Could it be a reserva or gran reserva? No, at all. It doesn't have all this complexity. So if I was in Ribera, it could be crianza, but it doesn't have this punch of crianza. And because we have detected some use of oak, therefore, it's not Joven style. And that's one of the reasons why I would never ever place in Ribera del Duero. If I'm outside Ribera del Duero, if I know that it's definitely not Rioja, then I'm on a southern zone. Could it be other zones like south of Rioja? I think it's rather Castilla-León is rather La Mancha, Jumilia than Carinea or any other region here. Does it make sense
Madrid?
to you? Yeah, the Madrid wines, they don't have this punch of fruit. They often has more grainy tannins, and the fruit, the Garnacha from Madrid, they often has more red fruit as opposed to darker fruit as we get here.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Yeah. Can I just say something? I for the first time, I got a red wine that at first I put medium minus acidity. Then I went up to medium. And you guys, both of you found medium plus. I don't know about the Jutes or Alan, do you also find it like medium plus acidity? Medium plus? Yeah. I'm not even salivating.
At the beginning, I felt in high, but then I realized that it's medium plus.
Wow. Scary. Yeah. Okay.
So it does has a good acidity and it's quite persistent. I mean, you salivate and then you salivate and keeps your mouth fresh. So that's why I went straight to medium plus rather than high.
What do you think the quality is, Thiago?
Well, I said, I think it's good quality. Can you push to very good? Maybe. because why do I think it's a good quality wine? It's round, it's soft, it has very good tannins, like a velvet. The aromas are quite complex. I mean, you can spot several aromas, but I think it's well made, it's balanced. But the finish, it's simple, it's unidimensional, there's only one flavor. It's not going anywhere, so it's drink now, not suitable for aging or further aging. I don't think it has the layers of flavors to allow this wine to improve. It could keep. I mean, if you have it if you drink it next year, it will keep. But I don't think it's going to improve. The bouquet could improve, could become more complex, but I don't think that the flavors will evolve. I don't think it's layered enough. So I think that the concentration is medium and the finish is medium to medium minus is where I am here, but simple. Very soft, very nice, very velvety, but not going anywhere. That's the way that I perceive. And that's one of the reasons why I am outside Ribera do Duero, why I'm outside Rioja, why I'm looking for other zones. But thinking of grape varieties in Spain, I mean, could it be Garnacha? No, Garnacha often don't have this sort of elegance and black fruit and concentration and
More alcohol.
the acidity, or it could have more alcohol, although some Garnachas can have lower alcohol.
More red
doesn't
fruit?
taste like a
Would you
Garnacha.
expect more red fruit from a profile like this from Garnacha?
I would be expecting more red fruit, and often an easy drinking Garnacha could be whole bunch and carbonic maceration, and also the tannins, you wouldn't be that high. You know what I mean? So I don't think it could be Garnacha. Earlier on, Gabriel was mentioning about Mourvedre, and Mourvedre often has more body, more alcohol. It's less soft. It's more acid. So for me, it doesn't taste like a Mourvedre at all. So I wouldn't go that way. And often when you see Humilia wines, you know, the Mourvedre wines from Humilia, they tend to be more astringent. The tannins are very,
Mourvedre
very
is
present.
Monastrell, right?
Monastrell, yeah.
Mourvedre, Monastrell, okay.
Yeah. So if you get Monastrell, you tend to have more tannins. You tend to have more meaty wines. It doesn't go that way.
Thiago?
So I would be in La Mancha. I would be in La Mancha or be in Castilla. That's where I would be, because you can have very good wines at affordable prices. Bruno?
Thiago, it could be Mencia.
When I think of Mencia, I think of Pinot Noir. And I think of the nose should be quite floral. The nose could be quite wild. The concentration of color of Mencia, it's similar, it's similar to Pinot in some ways. More tannic, more acids. The acid is more present. I don't think it's a very round wine to be Mencia.
Okay.
So for me, it tastes more like a Tempranillo wine, a generic Tempranillo wine, as opposed to Mencia, for example. Makes sense?
What can you say about this oak that it's a simple wine, so producer can't afford using French oak in this
Yeah,
wine.
I mean, it's not brand new. I think it's like a second use or third use for a short period of time. Yeah, producers, they can afford. It depends whether they have a market, whether they are able to find a buyer that is looking for a good, solid quality wine for a less popular region. So yeah, for sure. I think it's a decent wine. It's drinkable. I mean, it's enjoyable. I'm enjoying this wine. quite juicy on a black fruit side with good use of oak, and but not judicious. I mean, it's there, but it's giving structure. Shall we taste the second wine? So then we can compare them both.
There's another variety we didn't mention, which is Bobal.
Yeah. Bobal usually makes simple, much simple wines with much less structure, which is not the case here. You know, the body, you know, the tannins. Bobal often make wines like a Pinot Noir as well as in some ways. The good guys are making a sort of a lighter style. That's how it goes, Bobal. Shall we taste the second wine? Shall we do it together so we see whether we are on the same path? I would go and say, you know, just a pale ruby or maybe medium ruby. Okay, but I can see through, so you know, I'd go on pale side. Ruby. For me, the intensity here was at the beginning medium, then I was in medium plus intensity of aromas, and then I was like, okay, I will stick with medium. But it's quite aromatic, it's quite floral. Can you pick that up? Think of a rose, think of petal rose, think of cherries, strawberries, you know. So it's quite red fruit driven. Then there's a little bit of dry herbs. So you get this sort of a dry herbs through. And now for me, it's becoming a little bit like soil, like
Earthy.
forest, earthy. Yeah, it's becoming earthy, just like a Pinot Noir. Some Pinot Noirs can be like that. Make sense to you? The floral side, the rose side, the earthy
Older
side.
Pinot Noir.
Huh?
Older Pinot Noir.
Yeah, some older Pinot Noir can become like that.
Oh, come on.
No?
Not a Pinot Noir from Bourgogne like this, with this color and all this fruity stuff and all that. Okay, maybe a Village or something like that, but otherwise,
Chevrolet Chambertin can be like that.
bigger.
Chevrolet Chambertin can be like that.
Yeah, but not after a while, because he's mentioning an older one. Well, anyway.
No, yeah. I mean, some Pinots, they can have this sort of still petal rose and at the same time earthy.
No,
Not
I
necessarily
agree.
very old wines.
It can be earthy, but not like this.
Yeah, I mean, again, we can't compare, but it does has a little bit of Pinot Noir identity to the wine. The lightness of aromas, the earthiness, a little bit mushroomy, yeah. But very good punch of fruit. Okay. Shall we taste the wine? Yeah. Dry, medium body, medium alcohol, like 13%, high acid, quite, you know, more present. The tannins for me, it's medium plus. However, the tannins, the quality, the texture, it's grainy. It's very present. It's very there. Some people would say grippy, but as I can taste the like a sandpaper, I would rather say it's grainy because I can taste the grains. I can perceive the grains in my mouth. I would rather say it's grainy. I think it's medium concentration and medium minus finish.
So you think that the finish is lesser? It's quick. It goes away quicker than the first wine.
I think there is less concentration on the last wine, and then it becomes smoky, ashy, dark chocolate, and tannic.
Yeah.
You know, it gives you less. but it's more sinewy the way you finish.
It's more complex than the first one.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? It has more character than the first one. You know, all the aromas that we get on a nose, the tannins. It's quite meaty. The wine is quite meaty. You have to chew it. You have to chew because of the tannins.
More personality.
A lot more personality. I mean, the high acid. It makes you wonder how long can it last in bottle, right? Can you think of a climate condition? It's definitely not cool climate, and I think for me it's also moderated too high. But I think it has some cooling influences, either by altitude or either by hill. You know, altitude and quite hilly. For me, that's why it's coming through my mind. Also, I think that the soil here could be quite stony. Can you see how the wine, it's quite, you get this smokiness, which I also believe it has some wood contact, but it has this sort of a minerality on this wine that often comes from wines, grapes that have been planted into stony soils. So I don't know, I have this sort of a minerality through, which for me, it's coming from the soil.
Stony or limestone?
Stony. So you get some Chateauneuf du Pape, which sometimes they have this minerality to it. You can get Priorat wines that have this stony soils, that you can get this minerality and smokiness as well as. So I think it is the case. Oh, that's what comes through my mind when I taste this wine. I don't think it's coming from a clay soil, because a clay soil would be more brown and more wider, more heavier. I think it's more, how can I say, more vertical. Let me put my earphone. My kid is listening to his music. So does it make sense what I'm saying? So what are the grape varieties that can be quite tannic, high acid, and make wines that are more vertical as opposed to the big and the muscular ones from Spain? Is it Garnacha?
I think it's more impression than anything else. It depends so much on the region where it's planted and altitude and what the winemaking is. Because you see Garnacha going from A to Z. You see Tempranillo also going from A to Z. I mean, totally different wines. So I don't know what this one is, but I'm kind of curious. Apparently it's not Tempranillo, right? From what you're saying?
Definitely not.
Okay. But
yeah, do you guys think it's a heavy wine or is a light wine? Every time you're tasting a wine, try to read its personality. So for me, it's a light wine, semi-aromatic. Yeah, it's a light wine, semi-aromatic, high acid, high tannins, quite marked tannins. It reminds me of Pinot Noir. Does it make sense? If you are going to describe a Pinot Noir from Burgundy, for example, you say, you know, it makes pale wines, right? The majority of Pinot Noir made in Burgundy, it makes a pale color. It has this sort of it could be floral, it could be rose, it could be red fruit driven, it could be earthy. That's Pinot Noir. You can have very present aromas of oak, French oak, or you can have no oak at all. That's Pinot Noir from Burgundy with a little bit of VA, with a little bit of Brett. It depends. However, this is part of the personality of Pinot Noir. as you taste the Pinot Noir in Burgundy, you're expecting high acid, marked tannins. The tannins should be there, like, you know, very present. And you are expecting to be dry to moderated 13.5% alcohol levels, like here. Medium body, it could be full body. Yes, if you are tasting a Premier Cru, I'm expecting to have full body, full on, like very big and muscular. So it depends on the village that you are tasting, as well as the concentration.
I hope you put some Premier Cru on the next box.
I was expecting to have someone to sponsor it. I'm thinking, I'm still working on that. And I'm also expecting to have the wine to be medium body, medium concentration. It could be short finish or long finish. So that's all Pinot Noir. So I have, but overall, they tend to be quite vertical. And I can read this, as I read this wine, I'm thinking that could be quite Pinot Noir in a way. Same style of a concentration of anthocyanins, high acid, marked Pinot Noir, marked tannins. You know, that all comes through my mind. So then I'm thinking of styles of wines that traditionally make wines like this.
Red fruit and excuse me.
No, go on. Go on.
Okay. You said high red fruit and high acidity is, I think, Mencia, because
Mencia could be one of them.
Yeah. Mencia, yes.
Yeah.
Because red fruit, high acidity, tannins. It's no soft, but more grainy, more penetrate.
But isn't the textbook Mencia like softer tannins? Talking about textbook. I don't remember what I drank. So. But then again, a textbook is something, and what you see is something else. So.
Yeah. No, well, I have tasted some Mencias. A lot of them are quite rustic, good ones. They have a more how can I say, more approach, more easy approach, and the tannins are quite can be quite grainy, but in a more how can I say, palatable way. Some of them can be quite so heavily, the tannins can be so heavy that you can't taste anything. You smell beautifully, but you can't taste anything because the tannins can overwhelm the wine, which is not the case here. But Mencia is a good call. When you think of Bourbon tends to be more aromatic and less structured.
How about Carignana?
Carignana, it often has these high tannins. It often has high acid. It often has red fruit, but the body tends to be much bigger, much more concentration, much more weight. Like as opposed to this wine, I feel less weight to this wine. Make sense? Good. Okay, so what can we draw? What we can as comparing both wines, the first wine has this black character and it's more soft and velvet, and the second wine has this red characteristics, red fruit characteristics, high acid, grainy tannins, no velvet at all, and it's more vertical. And the first wine is more round and more horizontal, thinking of weight and texture.
Could you have a blend on the second wine?
It doesn't taste like a blend, because if it was blended, they probably would mask the tannins. They would probably add more body to it.
Now, when you talk about the grape varieties, if you produce high volume grapes, you tend to lose a little bit of the character of the grape.
In some ways. But when you think of high volume, when you think of the big brands for consumers that, they go to the supermarket and they buy, what they're expecting from the wine. They're expecting the wine should smells like
Easy
wine,
drinking.
tastes like wine, easy drinking, no hard tannins like here, no high acid like here. It has to be fruit driven. It has to have a little bit of a residual sugar. None of those two wines have a character to be a high volume. None of those two. They are easy to please. The first one is easy to please. The second one, not that easy. So there are no high volume. It doesn't matter the price. They're not mass produced. Okay. Right. So shall we talk about the wines? Shall we uncover the wines and then we can talk about it to see whether it makes sense or not? That is our conclusion or our tasting notes and our marks.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask why Monastrell that doesn't match with this wine?
Monastrell often has more body. Like when I think of Monastrell, I think the wines of Southern Rhone. They're bigger, they're bolder, they have high alcohol, they have more tannins, they're more rustic. And if you're trying to make an easy drinking Monastrell, you do whole bunch, you do no maceration, whole bunch pressing, and then you do a little bit of carbonic maceration to show off the fruit. And usually, often the fruit is black fruit. So why the first wine is not Monastrell? It doesn't have, it has a lot of tannins to be Monastrell. It has use of oak to be Monastrell. So it doesn't have a high acid, very penetrating like a Monastrell. And the wine is quite elegant in a way, the aromas are quite complex of the first wine. The finish, but hey, you can't have a Monastrell that has a lot of aromas and a singular finish. Makes sense? So, shall we get the first wine? So then we can talk about it.
I didn't think it was complex, the first one.
It had a little bit of black fruit and herbal and toast and nutmeg and smoke, and so there was a little bit to it. So it's called La Doncella de las Vinas. So it has this sort of rose to it. I didn't get any rose to it. It's a Tempranillo. It's 2018, and it's saying Vino de la Tierra de Castilla, and it is 13.5% alcohol. So shall we revisit the wine and talk about it? The first thing is, does it smell like Tempranillo? And then again, think of Ribera del Duero. Ribera del Duero often has French oak. Does it smells like a black fruit, black jam fruit, bramble fruit, blackberries.
Yes.
A little bit of smoke and ashy and toast and nutmeg. It's not sweet, spicy at all.
So Tempranillo, usually we do expect some red fruit. This is not always, or on the contrary.
Very good question. Very good point. If you're thinking of a more cooler climate, cooler influence climate, like a Rioja, especially if you are in the north of Rioja, Alavesa, you are getting a more red fruit character. If you're going to a more continental climate, like Ribera del Duero, which is insanely hot, then you're having more black fruit character. So that's a big difference that Tempranillo can have. That's the impact that the climate can have on Tempranillo. And if you are having in a more, how can I say, sandstone, not sandstone, but more chalky soils, you have a lot more fine tannins and high acid. And that's common in Alavesa to have some vineyards that the vines are planted in a more calcareous soils. But when you are in Ribera do Duero, that you don't have much of calcareo, you have a lot more clay and sand. You tend to have more black fruit and less intense acidity, usually medium plus, and the tannins are quite round and soft. And you often, the wines of Ribera do Duero, they bottle age less, don't last that long as compared to Tempranillo from Rioja. So the aging potential of Rioja is way bigger, especially when wines are coming from Alavesa. Okay. Then if you think that you have a petit Ribera do Duero, think where else can it be made that has this sort of a continental influence or more, how can I say, the coast zone,
You're right, the coastal zone.
yeah,
You mean
the coastal zone,
the north,
how can I say?
you have the oceanic influence, you mean?
Yeah, no,
northern part of-
it has a special name, or the southern coast of Spain, the
Southern coast of Spain, is it the Mediterranean?
the Mediterranean, yeah. So
Okay.
so it has this Mediterranean influence, which is the warm influence coming from the ocean, and this continentality where you can get, of which you can get in Castilla-La Mancha. So it makes sense the wine tastes the way it tastes. And thinking that La Mancha is not a premium region and Humilia is also not a premium region, you will get good wines, but they're much lower priced.
Mhm.
So it is the wine that would cost you about 150, 130, 160 at most reais. So a very good Ribera do Duero will cost you, a good Ribera do Duero will cost you 400. A good Tempranillo will cost you 350 to 400. So makes sense? Why it is Tempranillo? How can you argue Tempranillo here? Is he a good quality wine? Yeah.
Yep.
Is Tempranillo a good quality grape variety? Oh yeah.
Yep.
Much higher quality than Monastrell, right? That's why it's very popular. So one of the reasons why it is Tempranillo, because of the quality of the wine, because of the quality of the grape variety, because of the affinity to oak, because of the natural high acid of the grape variety, because of the ability of making wines with velvety tannins, because of the ability to age. Can you smell the concentration of aromas, the expansion of aromas? If you were having a simple grape variety, you wouldn't be able to have all of this complexity on the nose and all of this roundness on the palate. Makes sense?
Thiago, the nutmeg comes from the oak?
I think it's coming from the oak, for sure.
Okay.
So the quality of the wine and the quality of the grape could be an argument to say, oh, I think it is, for example, Tempranillo, because it's a very good wine, and Tempranillo is a high quality grape variety.
Did you feel any Brett in the wine?
Not really. Not in a bad way. No. Shall we go on into?
No bread at all.
No.
You have any doubts?
No,
I mean,
I don't have any doubts.
yeah,
No. But bread can come in different ways. Bread can come in a way that you don't smell anything on the nose.
Yeah, and I like
Bread-
bread, must say.
Or bread can come in a way that you have these farmyard aromas, which is good. I like farmyard aromas, and that can be bread, but for all the wine. So
after I opened the bottle, I smelled, like horse sweat, and it was. Now I don't feel it.
yeah, for me,
Can it go away?
It's probably
Can it
the
go-
oak and the smoke.
Okay.
So shall we uncover and talk about the second wine?
Plain is tough.
So here we're talking about a grape variety that you probably should be acquainted to it. If you're not, you should. So it's a grape variety called Mencia coming from Bierzo. It's 2018, so it does has a little bit of aging, bottle aging to it. Yeah, it's 13.5% alcohol level. So yeah, moderated, medium alcohol. And it's 100% Mencia. Let's go back to it because Mencia, by the book, it's compared as Pinot Noir. Throw away everything that you have in your glass, throw away, get a fresh one. And as you get a fresh one, you will see that the wine is slightly more aromatic. It's on the fresher side. It's floral. It has a little bit of a rose petal to it, like a dry rose petal. It does has a little bit of red fruit, and it is a little bit earthy. It's quite complex. It's subtle. It's not wow in your face, but it's subtle, and you can get different layers of aromas. Beautiful, but delicate. Okay, so you have to pay attention. You have to search for it. And the aromas, the nose is a lot more intriguing here than it was on the first wine. But you need to be prepared to find it as you taste the wine.
Is this wine from? Is it a Vino de Pago?
No.
No.
In fact, it is the entry level of this producer. They have an old vines. The same producer, they have Mencia from old vines, old vineyards. So it is dry, it is high acid, it is fine grainy tannins. It has this sort of red fruit, more on raspberries, cherries, than plum, for example. And we get the finish is quite short. Yeah, ashy, you get a little bit of this dark chocolate, which for me is an indication that he had a little bit, I reckon. I haven't seen any tasting, any production tasting shit. But I reckon it has been aged on old barrels, wood barrels. That's just to soften up the tannins. Okay, that's what I believe it could have happened to this wine.
What vintage is it?
It's 18. So I reckon WSET would never bring you a Bobao, but you could be acquainted to Mencia. You should be acquainted to Tempranillo. You should be acquainted to Garnacha. And if you have the opportunity, buy any entry-level Monastrell, any 100 reais Monastrell. That's the benchmark for Monastrell for the exam. If you want to taste the classics, then you get a Reserva Ribal Duero, a Reserva Rioja, and then you go on and you buy a wine coming from Priorat. Those are the classics, but I don't want to show you the classics. I really want to show you the wines that could fall into the exam, and there is still within his Spain zone. Makes sense?
Thiago, I just checked this because this Bodegas Pequi has some good stuff, but I didn't know this one, and it stays for 2 months in shit. Always translate this into English, into casero, Ashley Knox. Come on, you guys, help me out.
Stainless steel.
Stainless steel cubes for 2 months. And the vines are 45 to 55 years old. So there's no oak in this.
No oak. Okay. Perhaps least contact could help. But, or the soils, it's the reason why we get a little bit of smoke and so on and so on. It could be the case. Remember, I did mention about stony soils. Yeah, stony soils can add this smokiness to the wine. Perhaps that's one of the reasons. But you are not going to go to the exam and say, oh, it's Bierzo because of the smokiness. No, it's Bierzo because it has high tannins, high acid, it's semi-aromatic, the aromas on the nose, it's quite floral, like Pinot Noir. So think on the style. Don't go into the aromas. Think on the style. So it has earthy, it's floral, it's high acid, it's tannic, there is no much of a concentration. It's a style very vertical, like where else can I find a style like this? And then once you read that, once you are able to pick that up, those points, you can argue why it's rather Mencia than Monastrell. Because to be Monastrell, you need more body, more alcohol, more black fruit, and so on and so on.
Great. Besides the fact that comparing it to a Pinot Noir, that's great. I know you're the MW student and we're not, but geez. I even went to Jancis Robinson to check if she said anything about it because I see no resemblance at all.
Maybe the
talking about a better quality Pinot Noir. I don't know. They're making all kinds of stuff over there, but anyway. Oh, good.
Okay. I hope you have enjoyed. You had fun. And I think it's quite easy to enjoy those two wines. So pretty soon we'll be having a new box of French wines. I'm still struggling to find all the wines within a reasonable price and within a good quality that really represents those regions. So, it might be a lot more expensive than all the past boxes, but hey, you're talking about France, it has to. If it's Bordeaux, it has to taste like Bordeaux. If it's Sauternes, it has to taste like Sauternes. If it is whatever, it has to taste like. So as soon as I have the final price of the box, I shall send you, share with you guys, and then we are ready to kick off. Okay.